Welcome back to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Los and Kristina Lou, and we're just waiting for our next guest. But Otto just gives us a little time to talk about Karen Blackburn's presentation. You know, I know how you were saying, that like she was kind of preaching to the choir, because all the people that are listening and participating and will watch are probably more proactive. But I did learn a lot, you know, and especially what you were saying too made me think about, you know, if I'm traveling with my mother, and, you know, I personally would never put anyone in my family in that situation, you know, that I know something's coming. But, you know, I guess you never know. I mean, just like when I was driving through the mountains, you never know. I mean, the mountains, that's common that it happens. It wasn't predicted, and you really can't. It's just the wind swirling the snow flying off the trees. But I did learn a lot, you know. I think there's a lot of good stuff.
I did too, frankly. I mean, and, you know, we've heard these things before. Sometimes it's a good memory jog, and sometimes you pick up something new. So
Yeah.
what Karen was saying is I'm 1,000% in favor of. And what I mean by preaching to the choir is that we all know that there are people who are out there who are offensive drivers, not defensive drivers.
Right.
And in order to be a good driver, you just have to get it through your head that that's the way it is. And I am still going to drive defensively. I'm not going to let that person bully me around on the road by succeeding, you know, and trying to push me out of a lane. All these things that they do. You just have to keep calm, do what's safe, and get out of the way and let them go on their stupid way. But to be blunt about it, you know, what else can you do? I mean, you can get mad, but it doesn't help. It really doesn't, because that person doesn't have a clue that you're mad. They just keep plowing along and doing what they're going to do.
Yeah, right. Right. You don't have to engage. You don't have to be, you know, let them by, and you just, you know, take care of your own safety.
Yeah, and that's a bigger issue in bad weather.
Right,
Whether
right.
it be
You're in bad weather. Yeah.
But very rainy day, snowy, icy, whatever. Everything is magnified.
Right.
The risk of tailgating, the risk of speeding, all those things become even worse when the weather's bad.
Yeah. Right. And, you know, you take on a lot of responsibility when you're the driver. I mean, when I was driving, I want to harp on that, keep going back to that day, and it was traumatic. It was me, I was driving. I had my son, my nephew, who was 18, my other son, whose recital we're going to, his girlfriend, and also another friend. So it was 5 people. But you know, you're responsible to those people. But I think our guest has arrived, and maybe we can start chatting with him. But again, it was great to have Karen on. I know we'll have her back, and we'll get to get even some more great tips on staying safe driving in the winter. But
we should talk about ways later, by the way, because that was a good point you brought up.
Yes, yeah, true. We can do that with Talk of the Town. But I want to welcome our next guest, Mark Brier. And Mark is a comedian, and I know he's been on the show before. And we're going to talk about Laugh Out Loud, which is comedy for seniors. So welcome, Mark. How are you?
I'm fine. Hi, who's here? This is Rebecca?
Yes.
Rebecca and Kristina and Otto?
That's right. I'm a host along with Otto. He's our co-host for Project Independence and You. And of course, Kristina, who is the radio show producer and also the director of Senior Citizen Affairs.
Well, that's wonderful.
I'm a volunteer.
Otto, it's been quite a while since I spoke with you, sat in with you on the show.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
Probably about 6 or 7 years, maybe.
But we don't count the years anymore. And Rebecca and Kristina and Otto, I want to wish you all a happy and a healthy New Year. And I
Right
hope you
back
had
at you.
good Hanukkah. and we want to talk about comedy for seniors because that's what I do.
Yeah.
So, Mark, before we get into all the comedy, can we talk a little bit about is this what you do for a living? How did it all start? How did you come to be a comedian?
Okay. Well, about 47 years ago, boy, that sounds like a lot of years ago. Boy, back in 19, no, I don't know, about
You froze. We can't.
Uh-oh,
we all got divorced at the same time, and we rented a house and we hung out together. And I was funny, and they started me going to comedy places, and
We're having a little difficulty
little
with
technical stuff going
Technical.
a
on.
little technical with Mark's connection. So, Mark, we're having a little difficulty with your connection. You're freezing.
It's freezing. Yeah.
back in 77. So how many years is that? That's what, 46 years I've been. This is my 46th year on comedy, boy. And then as it developed, I started working less and concentrating on comedy. And since 2004, I've run a program called Laughs at the Library that has been in over 160 libraries. And it's a regular program at the East Meadow Public Library every month since 2004. So I'm starting my 20th year. And what I try to do is bring comedy to people who don't frequent comedy clubs. It's clean comedy. And what we do is we do libraries and mainly for seniors. And then we branched out, and two other fellows and I, Pat Gagliardi and Eddie Faico, we started doing all the condos out east, and we do any kind, VFWs, Knights of Columbus, Jewish war veterans, any group, churches, synagogues, any senior groups. And that's what, and we're clean comedians.
You know, Mark, before we don't have a lot of time, but if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
You know what? I don't mind giving out my phone. Do you think it'll cause any problems?
Not at all. Go right ahead.
Okay. 516-205-7504.
Right.
We bring people from 5 comedians. It's clean for any of an organization, and we're affordable and work with the audience.
Mark, you have 3
So
people.
that's what we do.
You have 3 altogether. You and 2 other guys. Do you all perform together, or how does that work? You know, you're doing.
We don't do it.
Unfortunately,
we work with each other, but
So, Mark, I don't know if you can
What's
hear me.
that?
It's Rebecca. We do have we don't have a great connection. So we're not, when your responses aren't really coming through, it's a little spotty. But you know, we definitely have the phone number. Maybe we'll try again because the connection isn't great. But for people that want to find out about, you know, Mark Brier, you can call that number. You can also call Project Independence. So what's funny today in, you know, 2023? What are our seniors laughing at?
seniors are laughing about the economy. They like political jokes, but we don't do that because it usually divides the room. You know,
Right.
talk about everything that's going on. It's like Mark Twain said years ago, I don't have to write any material. All I have to do is read the newspaper and talk about what goes on. I mean, there's so much material in the news. We try and talk about everyday things, observations and children and our relatives. We all do that, you know, and
Right.
we don't just perform for people, we perform with people. We get people to say things and we go on with that. It's not improv, but it's you know, totally unrehearsed, and we go on and just have a lot of fun. And the greatest
I would in reading about you guys, Uh, they talked about you do everyday experiences and events and you embellish on them. And then you do about family dynamics and never ending issues. uh, these are all things that I think can be funny if you look upon them funny sometimes. Uh, is that right? I mean, is that the world you're in?
Right. We we just work the room, and we talk about anything anybody wants to talk. We don't pick on anybody, and we just have fun. We have fun without being crude. So
That's good.
plus we try and have a veteran on our shows sometimes, because we want to give back to the veterans. And the greatest compliment we've ever had is when a woman or a man comes over to me after the show and says, "This is the first time I've laughed since my spouse passed away." So
Oh,
yeah, I mean, that's no better take home pay than that. And that's what we try to do. So I've been doing comedy, oh boy, like I said, since 1977. And I grew up with Billy Crystal in Long Beach. So he's a year younger than I, and we played ball together. And he's one of my inspirations for comedy.
Mark, why do you think so many funny people come from Long Island?
So that's because diversity of all the people we have here, which is the greatest thing in the world, diversity. If you go to Nassau, Suffolk, Nassau and Queens, there are probably 175 different languages spoken. Because I do a lot of libraries, in Queens libraries and Nassau libraries. And every time I have people who speak languages, as well as English, of course, and we try and work that in. Because I know a lot of words in about 20 different languages, and people think I'm fluent. I'm not, but I fake it.
I read something which is of interest to me because I was in the sales world calling on corporations and whatnot, and that was reading the room. How you get instinctively, like you talked about the different places you go to, and I think on your end, maybe talk a little bit about reading the room. It's always who are you playing with here? Who are you trying to talk to?
Like the other day, I did the Freeport Public Library last Sunday, and there were a couple of children in the room. Not that we do anything dirty, or it was a solo show, just me by myself. But I saw a child there, so there's certain things you don't touch on, even an innuendo or something, because they don't know what we're talking about, these kids. So you try and make something just for them. Tell them about the first jokes I told, when I was their age, 10 or 11 years old. And we're very careful not to, like you say, read the room. You see, if there's a whole lot of people who want to talk about it, you draw them out and see what they want to talk about. When I've been doing it so long, I have enough material that I can pull from for any subject they bring up. I mean, somebody wanted me to talk about a caning in Singapore, but I didn't know how to do that.
Well, you have to have a good memory.
Certain things we don't touch, but it's the whole thing is to just make people feel good. Walk away after an hour or an hour and a half of laughter. It's the greatest thing in the world. I mean, laughter is the best medicine. And
Yeah.
and I'm working with seniors, as Victor Borger said, you don't stop laughing because you get old. You get old because you stop laughing. So we try to make everybody cheer up everybody. That's our job.
I remember growing up and watching just constant Mel Brooks movies, even some Woody Allen movies, all those funny, just hysterical movies. And I think it warps you in such a great way, to kind of look at the funniest situations and everything, those, especially, Mel Brooks movies. I love them to today. I mean, if any one of them comes on, I can't turn it off. My son is actually a stand-up comedian, and I actually went to K through 12 with Rich Walker.
Oh, well, Rich Walker is one of the best. Rich Walker is one of the professors at Stand Up University. Him and
My
Peter
son did it. Yep.
and they teach. It's at the Brokerage Comedy Club, I think, or
Yes.
maybe Governors, and they
It's
teach.
brokerage. Yeah.
And many of his people come to my one show at East Meadow, which is an open mic. It's the longest open mic in comedy. It's since 2004, and I give them a chance to perform. And then when we get paying gigs, I give them all the paying gigs as well. So that Rich Walker and Bales, they're wonderful. I've worked with them a lot. And there was another guy with them, Steve Lazarus. I think he's in Florida. Another great comedian. And not only are they great comedians, they're nice people, and they really can help. I had a woman come to me at East Meadow and do a show once. This is years ago. And she did a few minutes, a retired school teacher. She moved to Florida, and now she does the condo circuit in Florida. So if I go down there for a week or so, I can ask her to get me a job, you know.
And you know, I love, and you're never too old to start. I mean, you can take, you know, Rich Walker's program and your open mic, and, you know, there's so many funny people out there that I think, you know, we talk a lot about retirement, of course, with Project Independence, and rewirement, which is one of our favorite terms. Instead of retiring, you're just rewiring. And I mean, you know, how fun to kind of venture into comedy. But we actually have to take a break. Mark, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I know that you'll be back. And for any of our listeners, we have the number to reach Mark Brier. You just can also call 311 or 516-869-6311, and Kristina or I'll be happy to give out that phone number. Again, thank you so much, Mark. We will be back with Project Independence and You, Talk of the Town, in just a moment.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Luce, Kristina Liu, and Dan Cox. That was really fun. Kristina pulled together another great show. We had two great guests, Karen Blackburn, who's a public affairs specialist from AAA for the Northeast, and we got a lot of really good information, very important information for winter driving safety. So this is going to be a really good show to kind of, you know, be one of the repeats and archives. So when you see this, you should listen. It's a lot of information, like Otto and I and, you know, Kristina were saying. You know, you do learn some new stuff, and, you know, it really makes you think.
It does. It's just, and, you know, and I really encourage people, if, you know, this will be up on, you know, with the YouTube link, probably in about a few days or so, early next week. And I encourage you to actually, if you're able to watch it video wise, because then you'd be able to see the whole presentation and stuff. And, you know, I've heard Karen speak so many different times. I mean, we just had her at an advisory meeting.
Yes.
And I feel like I learn something new each time she speaks. You know, I'm writing stuff down, just little reminders for myself. And I think, you know, we all, you know, have heard these things, but I think it is important to constantly refresh yourself. You know, it's like when you take a defensive driving class, as you guys said, you know, it's always something that you're like, oh, I kind of forgot that, or it's just something to remember, you know. And I just think there are little tips that you could really do to keep safe, you know, if you have to drive. You know, I choose not to. If it looks bad, I'm like, you know what, I'm just staying home. So I think it's certainly important to do all that. And of course, Mark was great. You know, we had him on the show many years ago when we first started, and I think it's just nice. You know, it's kind of our message here is, you know, the laughing is the best medicine. I think we all agree with that, you know, statement. So it's just fun that he's still been doing it for all these years at libraries and stuff. So great stuff, guys.
You know,
Right,
Rebecca,
yeah.
you said something at the beginning of Karen's segment about how Waze helped you in the snowstorm or squall.
Right.
I use Waze a lot. and it's really a very helpful tool.
It really is. And just so you know, I mean, it depends on what your car, like I have Apple Play. So my whatever I have on my cell phone is on I have a big screen in my car. And, not everybody has the same setup. So the way that it worked for me was I'm looking at the map on my screen and I'm seeing in real time where I'm at and like what's ahead of me in the next kind of maybe a tenth or 20% of a mile. And I see as I'm there, I see how the road turns. I'm working with it.
Yeah.
So I could see, because most people are driving and it's like, okay, you turn, you don't know. So you know what's ahead of you. And when you're in the mountains, these mountains in the Adirondacks, if you've never been through them, they are magnificent. The most beautiful part of New York State. I am floored. However, there are no straight roads until you come out of it. And Potsdam, where my son goes to Crane School of Music, is like right through it. And you are constantly turning, switching, very few. The only time you'll have a straight run is when you're going through a town, and other than that, it's, so you have to really be aware and prepared. But yeah, Waze had that ability, it really helped. And, it's definitely something that I want to say it was traumatizing, but
but it's scary. I think back to, I've unfortunately, I remember when I was younger, I was in a bad accident with my mom and my now husband, in the snow. And it was like one of those pile up kind of situations. And it's just traumatizing and it's jarring. And I remember having to drive during Hurricane Sandy when like on top of hurricane, then the snow came. And I remember driving from Town Hall and like being absolutely terrified. I like had on Bluetooth one of my friends just to just talk the whole time because I was so scared, so I think it's these things do. And I think, Otto, what you touched upon earlier too is unfortunately there are so many people that no matter what the weather situation is or what's happening are just in a hurry and just gonna plow, and you have to really be defensive, and that's all you can do is just kind of how you don't get yourself aggravated, because I think we've all been there where you could feel yourself getting like worked up because people are just, shooting out. I see crazy things on the road all the time, especially during rush hour. That's like a show in itself. But I think that it is just a reminder to really be, defensive on yourself and just like, you just go, right? Be mindful of your driving, right? And I think that that's just a good little tidbit golden nugget for us all to kind of follow.
I think Waze, by the way, you have Apple, I have Android, and they have Android Auto. It's probably a topic that it's worthy of a much longer discussion, because like mine is also on the screen of the car, but you can do it strictly on your phone as long as you have a holder for your phone, not your hand. And you have to connect it to the car through Bluetooth, and it's not just like you just go into your car and turn on Waze. There is a little support needed for some people, perhaps, to set it up. It's not like you just walk in and hit the Waze button and away you go.
Right. That's what I was saying. My particular car is
right. Everyone is different.
Has all these wonderful things, and I don't think I would ever go back, just because it's, if I didn't have all that, I don't know what would have happened. And I was responsible for so many lives in my car, my son, my nephew, my dearest friend, my son's girlfriend, we're all going up on this kind of adventure and really mapped out the weather. And, it just goes to show you when you're in the mountains, especially in the Adirondacks in the winter, squalls will happen. It will happen. And I've been through there so many times back and forth to Luke's school, and that never happened before. And, it just really, opened my eyes to a lot of things. I will never again go through those mountains. Here's another thing. We planned to get there before it got dark, but we were picking up my friend who lives outside of Saratoga, and we wound up having a meal. Then we got back on the road, and by the time we hit the Adirondacks, it was dark. So plan that differently, because that, I mean, it would have been a whole different game if it were light out, but, on top of that. So, plan those things around, if you're going through the mountains, you don't want to be in there in the winter at night in the darkness, So that's another
and I think
thing.
regardless in mountains or not mountains, I think in general driving, in
long
these terrible
distances,
weather, right? It's just scary in itself, and if you can avoid it, as Karen said, avoid it.
Right.
So I think that
Well,
that's
driving, you brought up a point too just now, driving in the dark, all right? A lot of people when they get older, because of vision reasons, do not want to drive in the dark. Fortunately, my vision is good and I can drive in the dark, but it's much more pleasurable to drive in the daytime,
Right.
like you point out, like you're trying to see what's going on ahead of you. It's very hard to do that in the dark, no matter how good
because my mom has a problem too, which is a serious thing. There is the glare from the lights, the dark, and that's really, it's not so much even the dark, it's just how the lights are hitting, and that like really can, distort your vision. So it's just, these are things that I think are important to be aware of, and know, if you do have an issue, not to do that. And there's certain lights you could have put in your headlights, so there's all these kind of different things, that you're able to do. So I think it's really, listen, it's a serious thing. I think people sometimes take for granted, like, you're driving a moving vehicle, it's like everyone's been doing it for so long that you kind of just go with it and aren't really, you think you're in your own like little bubble sometimes, but I think it's like, really important to be aware of and to keep up with, maintenance and
Right.
gas, and I have to laugh, because I only wish my husband was directly listening to this, because he'd probably be chiming in the background like, I told you, this is what you're supposed to do. I told you, so this would only give him validation for all the things he tells me constantly.
Do you help him drive at all when you're driving?
Do I help him drive?
Yeah, I mean,
no.
you give him like a little verbal assistance once in a
Yeah,
while.
I'm always the passenger, so I'm, the direction giver, and in control of the music, which is equally as important to anything else.
Absolutely. I was going to say, when, to kind of tie Mark Brier into this, usually when I would go up to visit Luke, sometimes I'd be alone in the car, and I love to drive. Comedy Channel.
Yeah.
You like, if you have Sirius, you have like comedy stations, and you're in the car for so long. Sometimes I'll listen to the comedy shows for like 6 hours straight. And like, there's so many good jokes. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell this to my son. Oh, I can't wait. And I can't remember any of them. But I'm entertained the whole way.
Yeah.
But
it's funny you said that, because when I have been in situations where, there's bad weather or there's insane amount of traffic or whatever it is, I'm like the podcast queen. I feel like I can't even manage my life with the amount of different podcasts I just like consume all the time. But it really does help you like relax and just not get yourself, you just kind of say, okay, like I'm just going to go at this pace and not like rush myself. But I think it is like a good like little kind of calming tool to have access to these different things. So it's but listen, I just, I really, obviously my husband's always saying to me, do not like, have your gas go below half a tank. I'm very blessed that he'll go take it and fill it up for me. So I'm very lucky. And you know that, and you're not, I always just thought it was like, oh, because like you just shouldn't do it because you might run out of gas. But when Karen was saying like the actual effects of the car, and the I mean, that's like serious stuff, so there's these little things you can do to avoid being in these situations, and I think it's important.
Well, here's a question for you, all right? You listen to a comedy show for 6 hours, all right? Do you feel that there's distracted driving at all? That maybe you get so absorbed in listening to the show that you lose attention or focus to the road?
I mean,
question.
It's a good question.
I don't know.
My personal opinion is I know I have listened to stuff, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh wow, I just been driving for the last."
Right. Like sometimes I've left my house, and whatever I've listened to, I get to, and I'm like pulling in, and I'm like, I don't remember my drive.
Yeah.
But
that's my point.
I really am I want to say I'm a cautious driver. I'm a courteous driver. I really try to be safe because I have so much guilt if I were to like cause an accident. I don't think I could live with myself, causing harm to someone else. So but I've been driving a long time, long time in the city, on the island, upstate, down to Florida, for years.
I mean, listen, I am a wonderful passenger. I really am. I'm helpful. I usually have snacks. Like I've mastered being a passenger because my husband like loves to drive. He's like, you back like Jay, he will choose. Like if we're going on vacation, he will choose to drive every time because he just likes it. You could see more things. You're at your own kind of pace. So listen, it's equally important to have a great passenger who's, encouraging, next to you. And I mean, I was known as a little girl, my dad would laugh that I would just, no matter what, fall asleep. We would do our road trips down to North Carolina and I'd be like, oh my God, we're here already because I slept the whole time. So it's, that's a whole nother story. But once again, I think we got a lot of golden nuggets today.
Definitely.
And I want everyone to your little homework, make sure you have, a shovel and, listen, I keep a blanket in my car and I've used it not even just in winter times when you get like cold. I've used it, my husband, you never know, we might end up at the beach or something, and just to have these kind of things in your car are certainly important. And
also the shoes, the feet.
Yeah.
If you step out into slush and you got to go back.
How many times have you like cleaned your car off and now your feet are wet and you're like,
everything's
great,
in the boots.
Yeah.
Right. All the snow gets into the boot.
Yeah. So it's these are little things that aren't hard to do, and I think a lot of people just have these things kind of lying around the house. So you're able to kind of just put it in your trunk or, put it in a box in your trunk, whatever it might be. Just to have it is just is super, super.
I agree with all of that it's good to be prepared. But I think the best tip that we hear is to check the weather forecast.
Mm-hmm.
And if it looks bad, don't go out.
Yeah.
Unless you
I
have
like that Carrie
Right.
said that, because there really are, I think we all, I know, listen, we've all been guilty of it. You get in this panic, like, oh my God, but she's right. Chances are you have something in the house that you could survive the night with a can of soup or a can of tuna, whatever it might be. It's not worth the risk of going to these things. And
Right.
listen,
Well, an opinion is you don't need winter tires if you don't go out and drive in the snow a lot.
Well, that's what my husband likes because I always say I want a 4-wheel drive car. Because I just feel safer. And he's like, but you don't even necessarily drive in the snow. And I was like, valid. But if I have to, I like to know that I have that feature. So it's these little things. But listen, guys, fingers crossed that we don't get a lot of snow this winter. It's like, you get through like the weeks and you're like, all right, another week, like not like crazy weather. So, but everyone, I want to remind people, if you ever miss a show that we have, you can check it out on the WCWP YouTube page, or you can check it out on the Project Independence website. All episodes are archived and there's really important material. And I love, the fact that we have it, Dan does his amazing edit work, which he's getting faster and faster at doing it. I'm quite impressed. You can just share it really easy because it's a YouTube link. So, if you have a friend or a family member that you think really could benefit from it, I really recommend sending it. So that's my little spiel on that. I want to remind people that tomorrow, January 14th and January 15th, there's going to be a model train show at Clinton G. Martin Park from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I know the town has done this before. It's really just absolutely beautiful train displays. I remember when I was a little girl, like I was always just so taken with these trains, and I mean, there's some of them are just super elaborate. So the show is being coordinated by Trainville Hobby Depot and as one of the series for a fundraiser. The funds benefit the Lakeville Estate Civic Association efforts to improve playgrounds and disabled access in the parks. Adults cost $7 and children are $4. So definitely check it out if you were in the area.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really fun for the whole family. So definitely check that out. I want to remind people Supervisor Jennifer DeSena is delivering her State of the Town address and lunch with the League of Women Voters. This is going to be on Friday, January 27th at 1:15 p.m. At the clubhouse. And that is free if you just want to see the speech, obviously. And it's going to be, I believe it's going to be live streamed as well on Facebook. So and it's going to be archived. So there's a whole bunch of ways you're able to watch it now, which is really, really great too. So definitely check that out. And just call 311 for more information for that.
All right. Well, on that note, let's take a quick break. We'll return to, I think it's our last segment. I can't believe how fast today's show went. You're listening to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We will be right back.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio, 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Los and, of course, Christina Liu and Dan Cox. And what a show. What a show. What a show. Good information, a little humor. And now we're in the Talk of the Town segment. But I know Otto just showed us a great picture during break because we were talking about model trains and hobbies and that kind of thing. So if you're listening,
you can see this, but
it's a young Otto
showing us a picture of young Otto under his tree, and in the background is like this farmhouse that I believe you said your daughter puts.
My daughter has it. She puts it up every Christmas, and it's probably at least 100 and whatever years old.
So cool.
That's so nice.
Big deal back in those days. People playing with trains. It was no television, no video games. People didn't get a huge amount of gifts like now when they're piled up to the ceiling. So you got trains once, and that was a good thing, because then the next time you'd get a light that could be put on. When the train hit the track at this point, the light would go on, and but
I have to say, trains I feel don't go out of style. Because even
I don't see too many people playing with them though.
But there are, a lot of I have a lot of little, children in my life, and when they do see that, listen, they're a little higher tech now than our typical trains, but they are still fascinated with it because it's just like the idea of just the car going around on a track and whatnot, and of course the lights and stuff and the sounds. It's really a cute little thing. So,
and of course, my kids grew up. It came on a little bit later, but Thomas the Train, and I remember getting even my nephew the pop-up tents that they would go instead of the trains themselves. It was all other kinds of gifts that you would get, like the pop-up tents and the shirts and the everything else around it. But
yes, my brother was upset. When I was a little girl, speaking of, it just reminded me of trains, which I don't even know if they make them anymore, but it was like the gift that my dad had to get me every year for many, many years was like the Hess truck. And it was like whatever the collectible. I don't know. Do they even still make Hess trucks anymore? I don't know.
We still buy them for my two grandsons, Otto and Karen.
Oh, so they still come out with a new one every year?
Well, since Otto's born, he's 14 now. We bought it every year, and they do come out with them. And even though Hess as a fuel company is long gone, they still make the trucks, and they make other trucks during the year. But we buy the ones that at the end of the year they advertise, and they're really good. They're solidly made, and
they are. I mean, I have so many, saved in a storage box because that was always the gift that my dad would get me, and there was always a different theme, and it was one of our Christmas traditions. It just reminded me of when we were talking about the train. So, but I encourage people to check it out because look, we just talked about it. We're all interested. So no matter what age you are, I think it's a fun thing to certainly do with whoever you might want to do it with. A really great press release came out that the North Hempstead's been doing these different kind of reducing food waste initiatives, and they're doing a whole program with it. So Supervisor Jennifer DeSena and the town board adopted an organics management plan to reduce the flow of wasted food, which in turn reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help feed the hungry. At the most recent board meeting, they just did this. The plan was developed in collaboration with the town's Climate Smart Communities Task Force as part of the town's climate action plan, and utilizes the US EPA food recovery hierarchy to prioritize food waste prevention, donation, and diversion. It's really interesting how doing it. There's kind of 3 core areas to it. It's prevention strategies such as smart shopping, storage, and repurposing food, encouraging donations of excess food to local food banks, and hands-on education and tools on home composting and local community composting resources to do with all of your food. And I really want to have someone, find the person in the town that's kind of spearheading this, because I think it's really an interesting thing to learn about. I remember on this show when we were talking about composting, and it's really interesting, to kind of figure out these different little things you can do in the house that make such a difference. So,
Well, I have a question about that. I think it would be good to have that person you just
yeah.
talked about on the show. The thing that always gets me is the waste of food that's on the plate that you go to a restaurant.
Yep.
Some restaurants, I guess, feel that the more they put on the plate, the better. And you end up eating half of it and the other half goes in the garbage. And I guess you can't do anything with that because of sanitary reasons.
Right.
But it seems like such a waste, and even
It
like in
is.
your own
It is.
home, if you have a gathering, nobody wants to run out of anything. So you wind up with too much of everything.
Don't talk
And-
about my mom that way, Otto.
Talk about my wife.
mom, cooks for a full football team on, it's 4 of us.
Yeah,
but
I mean, okay, so you order a pound of this, and okay, so we got 10 people. So that means everybody's got to eat 5 of these, all right? And a lot of people don't like those, so they only eat 1. And some people don't like them at all, so they don't eat any. But we're counting on 5 per person, whatever they may be.
I freeze everything. If it's in a restaurant, I can't control it. But if I'm like that. I panic usually. I know I have enough food, but in the last minute, I'll panic and maybe even, I'll make a huge thing of chili, or I'll order pizza, or I'll get a salad tray, but I always freeze everything, so if it's like leftover ziti or beef of any kind, put it right in the freezer.
But
yeah,
I bet
it
you there's
is,
a
because
lot
food
that
waste is
still
horrible,
goes-
and I feel so incredibly guilty. I hate that feeling of having to get rid of something, that's just sitting. We've all had you have all these great plans, and then you forget about it in your fridge. Life happens, and it's a horrible, horrible feeling. So I'm so aware of it that I have lists of expiration dates of certain cans and stuff, because the idea of throwing away a perfectly good can, it's just a horrible. And I think also coming out of the COVID pandemic, when there was shortages, you got yourself all crazy, and I just hate the idea of wasting anything. So I'm always trying to figure out either if I could donate it, or if there's someone I know. I mean, I'm constantly giving things to people all the time, so it's just the
But
worst feeling.
unfortunately, you can give food to family and friends who know you and know whatever, but you can't just bring that food that's left over to a food bank or whatever, to my knowledge. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's really interesting that the town is doing this, and I know they're really trying to partner. There was another list they had posted of different local food pantries and stuff that are out there. So I'm definitely want to find someone, because I'm so interested. It's not just, there's so many different components that this, really helps, and the environment, and you kind of just find out how it all trickles down and it works, is really interesting. So I will definitely be tracking someone down in the upcoming months to come on the show to talk about this, because I think it's important. So, and we're going to have the supervisor will be on our show And I think it's the last Friday in February. I think it's February 27th, if I'm right. But she will be on doing a recap of all the stuff that, has occurred and the state of the town.
24th.
Oh, 24th. There you go. I don't think you. So I really, I encourage people to tune into that. So it's good stuff going on in the town, really kind of environmental awareness and eco-friendly programs that are going on. And it's just fun to like talk about these things and think of spring coming, right? I'm always just like saying, it's like the countdown to, nice, hopeful weather. I also just wanted to remind people, if I could find it in my stack of papers here, the Lunar New Year, Year of the Rabbit celebration will be coming up on Friday, February 10th at 4:30 p.m. This is going to be at Mary J. Davies Green, which is right across from Town Hall. And it's going to be, they're lighting up Town Hall in a celebration of the Lunar New Year. And there's going to be a bunch of different things and performances and arts and crafts and different photo opportunities. So it's a really nice celebration. So if you are around, that is Friday, February 10th. Festivities start at 4:30 p.m. So certainly check that out. And also coinciding with that, they're doing a program the town's doing where, different school districts can create these beautiful lanterns. But they're also saying if you are an adult, so all of our senior listeners that want to participate also are able to do this, and they're all going to be displayed, which is really nice. So for more information on that, call 311 or 516-869-6311 for some information on that. And Otto, I feel like we've been talking about this for many, many years. And you know what time of year it is, which I know Otto has marked on his calendar, is the polar plunge. Saturday, February 4th. Otto, I just remember in our history of the radio show, was always endlessly intrigued by the polar plunge. And who's going to participate.
Because you're going in it.
Every year, Otto's really trying to get me to do
Rebecca. Actually, 2 Sundays ago, I think it was, I do this walking thing in Jones Beach in the morning. 2 Sundays ago, there was the polar plunge in Jones Beach.
Oh, at Jones Beach?
And there were a lot of people there in parking field 6.
Yeah,
but it was
I'm
about
always
50,
tempted.
There was like 55 degrees that day, so it wasn't
right. It wasn't too
terrible.
polar.
Yeah.
Right. But it's for a great cause.
All this talk about winter and snow and the driving through the Adirondacks, the only plunge is going on in my head is plunging to move south.
Yeah.
Eventually.
But what's great for all
Snowbird.
the really brave people out there, it's
Very brave.
It's all to, raise support and donations for the Special Olympics in New York. It's at North Hempstead Beach Park on Saturday, February 4th. Registration's at 10 a.m. and the plunge is at 11 a.m. You can call 301 if you are interested in signing up for it. It's a really nice thing, and I'm so impressed with the brave people because I watch it all the time.
I am too.
And I'm always so tempted, but I'm terrible in the summertime when the water is cold and you're getting used to it. So I could only imagine in the cold, but power to those super brave individuals who are doing something for a really good cause. So definitely, if you are brave, do that. On January 21st at 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., the town will be having an e-waste drop-off program because their e-waste, I want to remind people, we talked about this a little last week, it's no longer accepted at the typical Sunday resident drop-off. So you are able to do this on certain days, and January 21st, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. over at the 802 West Shore Road in Port Washington. And I think, unfortunately, we're in a time where we all are gathering a lot of e-waste. We don't know what to do with it. These are cell phones, computers, TVs, all different things. You can call 301 to get the specifics of what is accepted. So this is just
I have a question for you on that one.
Yes.
I have a small adding machine that must be 25 years old, and it had a roll of tape on it, and it would print, like they used to.
Yes, my dad still uses it.
Well, my bride said, I think it needs batteries. So I put batteries in it, didn't work. So I said to her, I'm going to take this to Geek Squad and see if they could fix it.
That's something I want to watch.
No, but now I'm thinking, how am I going to get rid of it? Because we both agree that she hasn't used it in a couple of years, and it's time to get rid of it. But it's this little thing that has a printer and it prints, and it's electric. It's e-waste. So
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I would call 311 though, and then you'd be directed to a store because sometimes, like, you might be able to dispose of it in regular garbage, depending, I guess, on whatever their qualification, because I always remember, and I actually learned that on this show, with batteries, you're always like, oh my God, like you never, like there was always, I remember when you don't throw batteries in the garbage, right? It was like this whole thing. But then being on the show, they said, no, and this is, I'm talking like a regular standard battery, not like a fancy battery.
double A or triple A.
Right, that you're able to actually dispose of that in the garage. And I remember learning that on this show because I was so scared as a kid to be like, oh my God, I can't throw this like in the garbage, but it's actually something you're able to. So the best plan.
I wouldn't think that kind of a calculator is e-waste.
I wouldn't either, but I don't.
You would call 311 because it doesn't have any chips in it. It's not, you don't need to. You could pull the batteries. It's just like what you would do with a blender.
It's about 25 years old.
Yeah, maybe sell it on eBay.
Now I got a different topic for you altogether. Do you go to the movies very often?
I haven't gone in a very long time.
Okay.
A while.
We went to the movies this week, all right?
Oh.
And I'm very partial. We went to see A Man Called Otto.
Oh, I totally was actually going to ask
Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
With Tom Hanks. And I thought it was very good. Now, I'm partial, of course. But it was a very good movie. It was very entertaining. Had some humor. It had some serious points to it.
It seems he's so good.
Oh, he was great. And
is that with the cat? There's like a cat.
Yeah, there's a cat involved. There's a couple. I think she comes from Mexico, and they live across the street from him. And she's a Spitfire, and he's a crabby guy. And there's a story why he's crabby. And it's got some good humor to it. The lady who played the part of the neighbor, who is from Mexico, was terrific. And it's a good story. It was very good.
And did you tell the patrons that your name is actually Otto? And,
no.
You should have got like a discount on the ticket. It's really.
I'm not.
But I think of you every time I see that. I think of you.
But it was very entertaining. So
I like it. I'm always down for a good movie recommendation. I said my husband laughed at me and said he can't keep track of all the shows I watch because there's just so many. And then I'm constantly binging something or watching. I have like a full list. It's like a full-time job. All the shows.
What I learned is that when we watched last night, we watched Murders on the Nile. I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that.
And when you put the name of the movie into Google search, there's a thing here that says already watched, and you press on it.
Yes.
And now it's already watched. So the next time, anytime we're going to watch a movie now, I will look up the movie to make sure that when we're halfway through it, we realize we already saw this movie.
Yeah. Or you could be like my dad, who watches the same movie, just knowingly, on repeat. He's been doing this for years, and I was like, Dad, there is so much out there. He's watched Tulsa King, great show, recommend that also. It's a fabulous show.
He
just watched Tulsa King. It's a great show. It's really funny. It's really, really good. But he just watches it literally 5 times a day. So that's my dad's plan. So he just chooses to, he's probably watched The Godfather and Goodfellas, a bazillion times as well. But that's his thing. But I actually have an app that's called TV Time, I believe, that I type anytime I watch a show or a movie. It tracks it. It gives me reminders when it's on. So it's part of organizing my life. I like to organize my television watching as well. So
what's it called? TV Time?
Yes, TV Time. Actually, I'll send you.
I'm like you. I got a list.
I told you.
These are shows that
me and Otto really might be the same person. I love it.
Stream, or we're big into PBS Masterpiece, Passport. And they have a lot of terrific stuff. They really do.
So great. Absolutely.
But I keep track of it because otherwise
I have to, because I forget. I'm like, did I watch this? Did I not watch? I totally feel the same way.
Well, we may go through 3/4 of the show and say we saw this before.
Well, on that note, our show's over for today, Friday the 13th, 2023.
Yes,
so,
and next week we will have on Long Island Housing Services, so definitely tune in. It's going to be jam-packed with great information.
Okay, great. Awesome. Can't wait for that show. Again, Otto, thank you so much. And Kristina, another great show. Thanks to Dan Cox and our great guests. You're listening to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Have a wonderful weekend.